Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Cleveland. I'm the Reverend Randy Partain. My pronouns are they, them, and I am delighted to welcome you into worship today, whether you are joining us in person or online. We acknowledge that we are gathering on the original lands of the Erie and of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabeg peoples, also known as the Three Fires Council. We honor our complex relationships with the diverse peoples and cultures who continue to share this land alongside us. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to actively honor some of those peoples and their elders by sharing our plate with the Lake Erie Native American Council, which preserves and carries forward indigenous culture in the Northeast Ohio region. So I wanted to let you know about that so you can look forward to it. If you're brand new to our community or new-ish, we'd love to answer any questions that you might have and help you get connected. You can help us do this by filling out the pew card. I remembered to have one up here today. It's this tiny little, I think this is lavender, card on the back of your pew. If offering plate when it comes around a little bit later in the service. And if you are joining us online, you can go to our website at uucleveland.org or just send us an email, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have and help you get connected with our community. I'll also just remind you that if you are here in person to help co-create our sacred space together, you can make sure any devices are set to worship mode, which our worship associate Greg Nosen assures me comes preloaded onto all makes and models of devices. So, Unitarian Universalism is a covenantal faith tradition. We don't have a creed. We don't all believe the same things. We don't have a common definition or relationship with the divine. I often say we're a very horizontal faith tradition because being covenantal means our focus is less on the vertical relationships that we might have with the divine and much more on how we relate to one another and the world we all share. This year, we're trying on a new way of expressing our covenantal values, and this month, we're especially focusing on the value of pluralism, by which we covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. And on this special day, where we especially consider the love and respect that accompany the act of mothering, I invite you to hear these words from Mary J. Harrington. We come together today in praise and thanksgiving for the gift of life itself. Someone gave birth to us, and some of us have given birth. All of us have been mothered in our time, and all of us have mothered. Let our time today be one of recognition that we arrive from so many places, joy and delight, wistfulness and longing and worry, unmet needs and unfulfilled dreams, loss and sorrow, loss and emptiness, loss and regret. All that mothers are made of, life is made of too. And today we sing songs of so many, mothering people who are single parents or foster parents, mothering people who relinquished their young out of necessity, mothering people who found their heart in adoption, mothering people who left their children in 1,000 ways, mothering people who rejoice, and mothering people who mourn. We sing the songs of the grandmother, the auntie, the classroom teacher, the Sunday school teacher, the babysitter, the neighbor with endless cookies and time. There is a kind of love we cannot live without. It is never too late, no matter our age or situation. We sing a song of gratitude for all the moments of being known, being cherished, being found. In that spirit, may we enter into worship together today. Usually, we take a moment now and we would have this chaotic time where we greet one another and try to have coffee hour before the service by sharing all of our lives and news. I'm going to invite you, as you would like to rise, as you are willing and able, to make eye contact with somebody near you and just say, "You are beloved and welcome here." You are beloved and... Oh, we're supposed to light a chalice at some point, aren't we? Hang on. I told Mika Yu she could light a chalice today, and we're going to light a chalice. My apologies. I had a script, and I didn't look at the script. Mika Yu is one of our juniors who is going to be entering into her senior year of high school. She's been very active with our congregation. She knows what she is doing when it comes to lighting a chalice. And we know what we are doing when it comes to lighting our chalice. We are going to read our covenant, which is on the yellow cards on the back of your pew. And then after that, we will welcome one another. But first, I invite you to read along our covenant. We cultivate trust with one another by celebrating differences, honoring boundaries, and offering compassion and care. We listen to each other deeply with curiosity and wonder. We speak for ourselves without need to defend ourselves or persuade each other. We create safe and brave space for healthy conflict, creativity, and fun. We reconcile through forgiving and making amends when we hurt one another. Thank you, Mika. And now you've had a practice run. Now I invite you to rise as you are willing and able. Make eye contact with somebody close by and say, "You are beloved and you are welcome here." You are beloved and you are welcome here. Just that. Just that. Just that. Just that. Just you are beloved and welcome here. Just that and no more. Just you are beloved and welcome here. Just that. Just that. Just that and no more. Only say you are beloved and welcome here. That's it. Just that. Just that. And nothing more. Hello, Unitarian Universalists. Hello, congregation. Hello, congregation. Thank you. So you've said to one person, "You are beloved and welcome here." Whether tears have fallen from your eyes this past week, or gleeful laughter has spilled out of your smiling mouth, I invite you to make eye contact with one other person and say, just, only, "You are beloved and welcome here." You are beloved and welcome here, Karin. Whether you are feeling brave, brokenhearted, defiant or defeated, fearsome or fearful, I invite you to make eye contact with somebody else and just say, "You are beloved and welcome here." Whether you have untold stories buried deep inside or stories that have been forced beyond the edges of comfort, stretch your line of sight, make eye contact with somebody else and say, "You are beloved and welcome here." You are beloved and welcome here. Whether you have made promises or broken promises or are renewing promises, you know what to do. You are beloved and welcome here. Whatever is on your heart, however it is with your soul in this moment, your turn. You are beloved and welcome here. In this space of welcome and acceptance, commitment and recommitment, of covenant and connection, let us worship together. And now I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing together, "Let It Be a Dance," hymn number 311 in the gray hymnal.
Good morning. In the very unlikely occasion that you should find yourself driving near me on 271 South, right where the large overpass goes over the Cuyahoga River, be very careful, because I am dangerous when driving over a river, because I really want to see it, and my eyes are not on the road. I'm usually doing that in any scenario where I'm crossing over a river. Cuyahoga River is just the closest one that I'd be crossing over. Same thing on a bridge or a boat, but obviously I'm safer when I'm walking than driving. It's an amazing thing about rivers, a really wonderful thing about rivers, because even for the outdoorsiest among us, and I know there are some very outdoorsy people here, I don't think most of us have a real sense of the kind of impending immensity that a river is if you are navigating the world on the ground. A river is a profound and sometimes very dangerous thing. Now maybe some of us, again, the outdoorsiest among us, we might wade through a river or a stream. We might walk down a riverbed from time to time. But a large, raging river is dangerous. It's full of eddies and currents. You don't have to, grow up playing the Oregon Trail to know. A river crossing is a treacherous thing. And of course, here in Northeast Ohio, we know how much rivers reshape our world. Northeast Ohio, we have the Cuyahoga Valley, which is literally a massive fissure that splits the landscape in half. So now we have an east and a west side of Cleveland, which actually, I was just reading about this morning, turns out to be a phenomenon from about 12,000 years ago. I know, this is amazing. 12,000 years ago, a glacier had extended to what about Akron is right now, and happened to drop so much glacial till that if you see a map of the Cuyahoga River, it's this massive horseshoe. Rivers don't normally flow this way unless you're in very mountainous territory, and it's because this glacier reshaped the landscape, and the Cuyahoga River took a right turn into Lake Erie. And now because of that, we have, an east and west side here in Cleveland. How's that as a metaphor for the ways that boundaries and thresholds show up in our world? Something reshapes the landscape around us, something from maybe eons past, and then we have to navigate it. We have to make our way over. We have to make our way through. I was thinking about this and just sort of stories of crossing rivers, and the best example I could come up with, I'm sorry to say, is it's a 2,000-year-old novel. One of my favorite ones, actually. One of the earliest novels, actually, in history. It's about a woman, beautiful young woman from a Greek city whose name is Calliope. And this is a very early novel. Most early novels have adventurous themes. She's kidnapped by pirates, and then later on some other people kidnap her again, and then later on additional kidnapping, and she's basically making her way eastward, where she's going to end up in Persia, where the great emperor of the Persian Empire is waiting for her. So she's making her way further and further away from things that are familiar, further from her home, further from the sea, which she's very familiar with. She gets to the point where she says, even her language, she doesn't recognize anyone speaking anything that she can understand. And the story is how she has to maintain her strength while all of these things are happening until she gets to, would you know it, a great river, the Euphrates River. At that point, she has a moment to give a speech. And she gives this speech affirming her self-empowerment and also yelling at fate for being so cruel to her to put this on her. And she actually addresses the river Euphrates. And she says, Euphrates, only once am I going to cross you. Once I step to the other side of you, I will be a different person, and I will not look back. She crosses the Euphrates with confidence and a renewed sense of who she is. We cross rivers all of the time in our lives. And when we do, we have the opportunity to realize how much of our pathways through life are these kinds of threshold crossings. A river reshapes landscapes over thousands of years. beginning as a drip of water and pooling together until finally a stream turns into a current, and a current turns into a flow, and a flow turns into a torrent. And just in the same way, we reshape the world around us and the lives of those we care about when we cross these thresholds, journeying across these rivers to cut our own way through the world. Today, we're going to reflect on some of these thresholds and the process of crossing them. As we do that, I hope we can take a moment to realize all of the places that we have crossed in the past and all of the places that we're going, even as we have become who we are by crossing all the rivers that we have in our lives.
Shall we make a river here, Alan? Which side do you want? It'll probably go right up to that first pew. We will have an opportunity to cross a river ourselves today, if you want to. All of us are on some kind of threshold. We've been together on a bit of a threshold this year, as I mentioned, trying on a new way of expressing our Unitarian Universalist values. We haven't given up on what our values are. We haven't even said we're going to express them in a new way. We're in liminal space. We're standing in a space where we know what's in the room behind us, and we're peering into the room ahead of us, and we're saying, is that where we want to go? Is there something for us there? For a moment, though, we're in neither. We're in this threshold time. Thresholds are sacred spiritual places. Religions of all kinds, cultures of all times and places have ways to mark moments when we are on a threshold between one state of being and another. We mark it in this country with just a few. We think of them as big things, but we don't actually celebrate that many thresholds in the United States. We celebrate weddings and deaths and births and graduations. Those are kind of the universals. Some people have learned to create a ceremony to celebrate when a marriage ends, because that's a big threshold, and it's important to acknowledge that you're moving from one state of being to another state of being. There are cultures that mark all sorts of thresholds. There's cultures that mark the 100th day of life. The Diné people of the Navajo Nation mark a baby's first laugh as a threshold. There are coming-of-age ceremonies of all kinds in different places. Bat and bar mitzvahs in our Jewish communities mark the crossing of a threshold into adulthood. A quinceañera marks a girl's becoming a woman in much of Latin America. We have coming-of-age ceremonies here, many years, not this year, but many years we have coming-of-age ceremonies here and mark that crossing of a threshold. I don't know why people don't cross that threshold after a coming-of-age service and then start serving on all of our committees and ministry teams, but we're working on that. Getting a driver's license or giving up a driver's license, those are big thresholds. All sorts of transitions, new jobs, retiring. This value of pluralism that we're exploring this month is the place where we locate the language about a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. It's been a part of what we define Unitarian Universalism as for a long time. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning sometimes gets taken as I can do whatever I want and I can find meaning however I want to, and it doesn't matter how it affects anybody else. And that's not a responsible search. It's a free search. But we say we engage in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And as I have been thinking about that, it strikes me that this is much more of a pilgrimage. It's not a pilgrimage to a place like Mecca, where you get there and you do a thing and then you go back to the rest of your life. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning is like a sacred pilgrimage that has a destination we're never going to get to. We've said we're on this pilgrimage, it's a sacred journey, and yet we're never going to really arrive or get to a point where we say, okay, I'm there, I'm done traveling, I'm done searching, I've got it all, I have all the answers. So I invite you in this spirit of constant pilgrimage to consider the thresholds that you are on in your life. We're adapting a little bit a ceremony that originally came from Lacey Clark Ellman. But I'm going to invite you today to focus on a personal threshold. Maybe it's a threshold you're in this moment. Maybe what you call to mind is a threshold that you really didn't acknowledge, but that you feel like you want to acknowledge today. And that's all right too. As we have seen earlier in this service, you are Unitarian Universalists. You will do whatever you want. But rituals are an important way to mark thresholds and to honor the experience that shapes our journeys. And like the practice of pilgrimage, rituals are external expressions of what's happening within us. So whether the moments you choose to mark in considering your threshold are challenges or triumphs, you can take some personal time after the service to ritualize them in your own way as well. This might be as simple as lighting a candle, or it might be a really complex ceremony of remembrance that you want to create for yourself. Today we're going to be doing a special thing, but you can take this forward in your life in a way that feels most honoring to you. So in a minute, Suvan is going to share some music with us, and this is centering music. And so I'm going to invite you during that time to think about the thresholds that you are in right now, moving from one place to another, one way of being to another. Engage a threshold with the awareness and the intention of a pilgrim, pausing to recognize this transition. How will you pause before moving forward? What action is required on your part to intentionally engage in this liminal, in-between space? And as you identify that threshold and think about that in-between space and what it requires of you, take a moment to look back. Because every river crossing begins from the path to the river. There is something that led us to the threshold that we are on, whatever that may be. So as you contemplate a threshold in your life, consider where you've come from, what brought you this far. What will you be leaving behind as you move forward? That's the hardest part for me. I want to take everything with me. There's a scene in Labyrinth. The movie has a lot of problems, but there is one scene in there where there's a character that is carrying all of the detritus of childhood and is hunched over, and it's this burden that she carries on her back. And that is what I feel like a lot of times. I want to cross the threshold and take everything with me. But sometimes grief is a part of crossing thresholds too. So in this centering time, I invite you to look back and say, what am I leaving on one side of the river as I cross this threshold into a new place? What do I need to let go of? We're going to turn that on, because this is not going to carry over to folks at home. And after you have thought about what you are going to leave behind, just take a moment to feel what it is like to be in that threshold space, that liminal space. How can you more deeply connect with yourself in mind, body, and spirit in this time of transition? How is the divine or your inner wisdom present to you and serving as a sacred guide along the way during this time on the threshold? Thank you, Sivan. like that as a river crossing. There was a lot of peril in some of that, but then there were moments of stillness, and there's a lot to that reminds me of thresholds. Hopefully you have a threshold that you're on, or that you want to acknowledge at least in your mind. You've thought about what gets left on one side of the threshold. You've thought about being present to being in that liminal space. I'm going to invite you now to practice a bit of curiosity. This is one of the things that causes a pilgrim to stand out from other travelers, is a sense of curiosity. To a pilgrim, questions are not evidence of doubt and uncertainty, but questions are invitations to connect with someone or something. So what questions bubble up in you when you think about this particular threshold? As you prepare to cross this threshold, how might a commitment to curiosity influence the way that you move forward? Once you start your brain working on questions, there might be more that keep bubbling up in the hours and days ahead. But I just invite from that space of curiosity for you to look ahead. Having remembered what brought us to our thresholds and honored our experience thus far, I invite you to lift your gaze and look at what awaits on the other side of whatever threshold it is that you are crossing right now. From this liminal space, you won't be able to see everything. But what do you see ahead of you? What might shift as you cross this threshold and engage in the next phase of your journey? How will life on the other side of this threshold that you are considering be different? What will be different? And sometimes when we start thinking about what's going to be different on the other side of a threshold, we realize that some of it is our responsibility. If we're going to be different on the other side of a threshold, we need to make a commitment to that and not keep lugging all of that stuff from the past and not keep being who we were on one side once we've crossed the river. So this is a moment to set intentions with a vision for the future in place. We might set intentions for how we are going to be, a commitment that we will make to ourselves. Sometimes the most challenging thing about crossing a threshold is allowing ourselves to become something that we are not yet. Making a commitment to something that we may not even yet know how to live into, but that we know we need to. So with a sense of the life-affirming values that support us, consider what intention you want to set for how you will be in the next leg of your journey. And if you're thinking about a threshold you've already crossed it, maybe this is a commitment for how you're going to be now that you are on the other side of whatever it is, something that you're going to live into that says, I'm here, I'm going to make this important, even when the path forward seems unknown. These kinds of intentions don't have to be a big deal. They can be very simple I will statements or I am statements. We might explore I am statements a little more over the summer, but for now it can just be a very simple I will blank. As I cross this threshold, I will. What are your hopes for this next stage of the journey? What practices will help you maintain your vision in a new time? You might still be back at the part where you're thinking about the grief of leaving things behind on one side of a threshold, and that's okay. We're going to move on to the final ritual part of this. And I just invite you to continue carrying this spirit with you. You've named a threshold. You've identified some kind of threshold in your life. You've thought about what it means to be in this liminal space, the things that you might leave behind on one side as you cross. You've looked ahead to what's on the other side of the threshold, and you've maybe identified at least one commitment that you want to make, an intention. I am, or I will, as you live into something new. Could be anything, any threshold that you're crossing. So now I'm going to invite you to cross with courage. We have our river. It is less treacherous than some rivers. I have tried to smooth out as many trip hazards as possible in our river. In many ways, what lies ahead as we cross any threshold is a mystery. But we want to affirm our opportunity to engage in the path before us with the posture of pilgrims, with curiosity, with a sacredness to the way that we journey. And if you are at home watching this, or some other space where you are watching this on a screen, you can still do this. This is not a special, this is a very special piece of fabric. However, you can do this with a yoga mat. You can do it with an actual threshold. You can do it with a piece of string. It doesn't really matter what it is. The symbolic act of crossing is what you make of it. And if there are some intentions or some things you want to identify that you want to share publicly, you can do that in the chat, and you can cross your threshold ritually in a way that makes sense to you to honor it. We did this because we had this fabric and we have this space. And you have your space and all of the things around you. So the invitation is to come forward. The microphone is here. This is not a time to tell your story. This is not a life story moment. If you want to name an intention, your I will statement, one sentence, then you have an opportunity to do that publicly. Or if there's something else, one sentence, that you want to name about what this threshold means to you, you can do that. Or you can just cross the threshold of our river here, symbolically, in a way that makes sense for you. If there are other joys or concerns you want to acknowledge with a stone in the bowl, we didn't do that officially earlier, although I saw somebody do it. That's good. You can do that as you cross, if you would like to put a stone in the bowl for other joys and concerns you carry with you. You don't have to name any specific threshold. As we transition into our congregational conversation after the service, maybe you share a little bit about it at the table downstairs with folks, or maybe in your small groups this coming week, you'll share a little bit about it. Hopefully you'll be able to create space to share more deeply the stories of your personal thresholds. But for now, I just invite you to share a brief sentence, if you're willing, about what this personal threshold means to you, and if you're willing to symbolically cross our ritual river as a sign of active commitment to your intention and purpose.
My threshold is the realities of aging, and what I am going to cross is creating a life that will accommodate that with joy and peace.
I will trust.
Thursday, I went to the Notre Dame College Library, and they gave us their yearbooks for our historical society. But I'm trying to get used to being in a city without a college.
I will have courage.
accepting increasing physical limitations and also crossing a threshold into a new house.
I am making meaningful changes in my life.
I'm a student teacher. My last day is Friday. I will remember the joy with my students, and I will take with me what I have learned and bring it to my next class.
I just passed the year mark of losing my mom unexpectedly, and I want to lead a life that not only she would have wanted, but fulfilling for myself as well, and being brave.
I will be open and receptive to the gifts of others.
I'm crossing over into this space from in a new church with a new town and a new career, and my commitment is that I will bring my authentic, true self into everything I do here.
Thinking of all the communities that I've belonged to and all the ones to which I will belong.
Some of you may be right here in the middle of the river, and you don't even know that you want to get to the other side yet, and that's okay. There are lots of ways to cross, and our bowl of joys and concerns remind us that even when it feels like we're crossing a threshold all by ourselves, we are not alone. If there are other joys and concerns that you want to share with folks in your online today, I invite you to put those in the comments as well. We have a couple of things in the book that I want to raise up. One is gratitude, a stone of gratitude for the cabinets in the welcome office that resulted from an ask at the Congregational Marketplace, which a lot of you took place in back in February. David Brown donated and installed some cabinets in the welcome office, and so we have a stone of gratitude for that. And the Cleveland State University President's Medal was awarded to Marge Shorak at a ceremony on Wednesday evening. This President's Medal is for recipients who have given of their time, talent, and service in ways that have directly and tangibly advanced the best interests and mission of CSU. So congratulations to Marge. And gratitude for Tuesday evening. Pat Dillard spoke at the GCC gathering. Many of you were there, about reducing the time spent in jail pre-trial. And that is work in motion that this congregation is having a meaningful part in. And so thank you to Pat, and thank you to all of you who participated in that GCC gathering. Stone of hope for what lies ahead. It feels wrong to go back to the other side of the river. I spend a lot of time in my life going back and forth across a threshold, and maybe you do too. And so perhaps today we have a little bit of conviction that we can say, I am on one side of the river. This is the side of the river that I'm going to celebrate being on. There are thresholds that we don't necessarily expect to cross in life, however, and I want to share with you one person's story. Our offering partner today is Planned Parenthood, and I don't know if you know this, but each week we share our plate. We keep about 20% of that money for operations, and the other 80% goes right back out into the community for work that we cannot do on our own, but that organizations are doing that represent our Unitarian Universalist values. And Planned Parenthood is one of those organizations that you just can't stop finding stories about what a difference that they have made in people's lives. And so I'm sharing one story, but there's so many. This is from Shannon. When Shannon was a teenager, she experienced unbearable menstrual pain, and she read a magazine article about endometriosis and realized that she had every single symptom on the checklist. Endometriosis is a common health condition affecting about 1 in 10 women of reproductive age, which is more than 5 million American women. Shannon's healthcare provider said that she was too young to have endometriosis and told her that what she was experiencing was normal, not having firsthand experience of what she was experiencing. But she knew that something was seriously wrong, and so when she was 18, she decided to visit a Planned Parenthood health center, and her provider there confirmed that she was indeed suffering from endometriosis. It was the first time that she was taken seriously by a healthcare provider. The provider was really concerned about her welfare and how she was doing, and that made her feel really great. It made her feel hope. It made all the difference in the world. The lesions were removed, and Planned Parenthood provided her with medication to manage her condition. There was no, she says no copay birth control is an essential tool in helping women like her with endometriosis who otherwise would have to live with chronic pain. But endometriosis can sometimes affect fertility, and she was unclear about whether she would be able to have children. And today, Shannon is a 37-year-old mother of an adorable little girl. Motherhood has been the singularly most amazing thing in her life, and her daughter, she says, is truly a gift, and she has Planned Parenthood to thank for her daughter. Just one of many, many testimonials on the range of care Planned Parenthood provides, saving thousands of lives every year, and also providing resources so that even more people can freely and responsibly create lives of meaning and purpose. So I invite you to give generously and within your means today. You can place cash or check in the collection plate as it comes around, or you can use Cash App. Our handle is $UUCC 44122. Please use the memo line if you use Cash App to indicate today's date and Planned Parenthood. Thank you. Reverend Amy Zucker-Morgenstern asks, why are thresholds sacred? Don't worry, she answers her own question. I think there are two basic reasons. They are about identity. They are a place of acute awareness and questioning of who we are, what we are, to what community of people and land we belong. And thresholds are about change, shedding one identity and taking up another. In other words, they are about being and becoming, that great balance of our lives. So a question for us as a spiritual community is, what do we need at such moments? What can we provide for each other? We need to honor what is on both sides of the doorway, to celebrate the whole of our lives, the self we are leaving behind as well as the self toward which we are going. We need something, some words, some music, some ceremony that will recognize the significance of this moment, not leaving it unmarked as if it means nothing. And we need one another. As we honor the liminal space of our lives, I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing together, Wo Ya Ya. It is number 1020 in the Teal hymnal. want to tell you about a couple of things. First of all, we have a meal together today downstairs in the fellowship hall, and there'll be a conversation with the board about a draft strategic plan informed by the listening circles that a lot of you took place in this past year. You may have a chance before that to share something about your thresholds with your table, but I know the board has a special program there, and you'll have a chance to weigh in about the threshold that we are on as we consider what our new strategic plan is going to look like. Next week, we are going to welcome Melanie DeMoore in worship with us. We have a really special service designed for that. And the day before that, on Saturday, May 18th, she's going to lead a community sing in Fellowship Hall at 11 o'clock. And then after that, in Fellowship Hall, on Saturday, May 18th, at 3:15 p.m., our congregation is partnering with Community Church of Chesterland and the Social Justice Ministries of Federated Church in Chagrin Falls and Racial Equity Buddies to screen the PBS documentary Malcolm X Make It Plain right here. And that'll be an opportunity to engage with other people outside of our congregation who are committed to creating a more just and caring society. And there will be refreshments, so if that entices you. I also want to let you know, I mentioned that we're going to be sharing our plate with LENAC later on in just a few weeks. In just a couple of weeks, maybe next week, Edwin's Family Center is going to be our offering recipient. They've only been doing this family center for about a year. You may know Edwin's, the restaurant. They do training for returning citizens, and they do a fantastic job. We've supported them in the past. Their family center is specifically for families of those returning citizens that may need a little extra help. And so in addition to sharing our plate, we're going to have an opportunity to share some physical goods. They need things like infant and toddler clothing and shoes and car seats and strollers and games and books, children's bicycles and tricycles. There's going to be a poster downstairs that has information about all of the things that you can bring. And I believe Pat Dillard is responsible for that too, because Pat is just everywhere. So you have a box or something? You will have a box next week? There will be a box next week. So don't run out today and get things and bring them back. But bring them next week, and how many weeks will we collect those physical things? 2 weeks. So short window, and then we'll get it to Edwin's Family Center for the folks there. There's lots of other stuff going on here. Please do check your newsletter. It comes in your email every Thursday, and if you're not getting that, let us know, and we will get you signed up to receive all of that information. Whether your threshold is something big like graduating or moving to a new school or changing jobs or retiring or giving up your keys and stopping driving or starting to drive for the first time, whatever it happens to be, rolling off of the board in about 6 weeks or being a new board member around here, there are lots and lots of thresholds people might be experiencing in this space. Maybe it's something that you would think of as a small thing, but thresholds are very sacred places. And they're not just a moment. We might feel ourselves in that in-between space for long, long periods of time, which can be beautiful and sweet and good, and at the same time, it can be excruciatingly painful to stand in the middle of a river for a long time. So as Reverend Amy Zucker Morgenstern observes, thresholds remind us that we need one another. We need words and art and music and symbols and stories and the touch of another human being to say, yes, this time is sacred. This is a time of becoming. This is a time of being. Time has slowed down and held us in mid-step in the no one's land between what we used to be and what we will be. And here we are, not knowing exactly what or who we are in this moment sometimes. So why are thresholds sacred? Because they teach us to live fully in the in-between and the unknowing, which honestly is where we live all of the time anyway. All the time. Honoring thresholds helps us to engage in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning as a pilgrimage in the in-between, uncertain, traveling place, moving toward wholeness with curiosity and hope. May we do so together with wisdom and courage. Amen, and blessed be. Stepping on the river as I move the river. We extinguish our chalice with the words found on the other side of the yellow card, giving Mika a traveling moment. And now, I invite you to read together as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
It's been wonderful playing for you all today. I'm finishing with a short piece by the Brazilian guitarist Paulo Bellinati. And this piece was actually written just a few months ago. So it's only been released to the public 2 weeks ago. Very new. Maybe one of the first times it's ever being performed. Not just by me, but like anywhere. So.